Okay, so this week I'm delighted to have with me Stephen Wilson of EFS. I'll let you tell everyone what EFS stands for. But today we're going to be just discussing Stephen's business, what he does, the approach he takes, how he's looking to develop things, and maybe kind of along the way we'll talk about some things along the coaching journey, because actually, Stephen, well, first of all, I'll let you say, what does EFS stand for? And then I'm going to ask you, how did we first meet? Because it was just shy of a year ago.
Right. So EFS is Environmental Filtration Specialists. So what we do there is we work with many manufacturing businesses within all different types of sectors. So I'm trying to think, that was probably about a year, you say there?
Yeah, just shy of, yeah.
Between us. And I think we first met, I think it was LinkedIn, was it not?
Could have been
LinkedIn
so.
That we started to talk over that. I think your short format videos was the kind of the grabber for me to come in and look at. And as the business was growing, we were getting to that point that I did feel that we needed additional support, really. As the kind of sole director and shareholder of the business, felt that having that high level type thought process was the kind of ideal scenario that I was looking for.
Yeah, great.
So that's how I decided to reach out to you.
And I'm glad you did, because I thoroughly enjoyed our time together so far, and you've done an awful lot of things which I'm thoroughly impressed by, and we'll maybe kind of cover that over the course of this conversation. But here we are on video.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yeah,
so amazing stuff. So environmental filtration specialist, I can see it on your on there. So how did you get into it, and tell us a little bit about kind of what is it you actually do, and you can dumb it down for me.
So I first got into textile manufacturing. That was the first forte into filtration for me, and within that it goes into certain pieces of equipment that more or less filters hazardous air. That's what it does. So the best example that we tend to use is when you've got a manufacturing facility such as welding, and that creates the weld fume from the process. That legally cannot be exposed to the staff in and around that area. So that needs captured, conveyed, contained and emitted to atmosphere, but needs to be cleaned. So within that, you would capture it at source, convey it, filter it through a textile type material, then the clean air would be sent to atmosphere. So my journey was in the manufacturing area first, then on to kind of servicing the equipment, then designing it, then selling it. So the journey right through of the filtration equipment. So we've got a couple of different aspects of it. We've got LEV systems.
Right, LEV.
Yes.
Go on, what does that stand for?
Local exhaust ventilation.
Okay.
So that's the abbreviation LEV, the term that's used in the industry. Then we have process dust extraction, which is then more or less of manufacturing facilities such as animal feeds. So when you're manufacturing an animal feed product, you would use a dust control system there to either convey the materials or within the actual manufacturing process, which is less to do with operators, but more like a production type improvement that you're looking at as well.
And so tell me this, what was you obviously worked as an employee previously, and then what was it that actually was the catalyst for you saying, do you know what, I'm going to start my own thing?
I think it was more to do with the ideas that I had in terms of relationships with clients and what I wanted to do. Now, typically within our industry, it's more the analogy is best is the MOT. So you would get an MOT of your vehicle, and you'd have advisories on that, and it's more or less something similar that we would do of a statutory inspection. But typically this just went to a client, and it was down to them to identify the items on the report, then come up with the solutions and try and figure it out for themselves, where I kind of wanted to move away from that, where it was, look, we'll simplify it all, create maybe a PowerPoint, then have a tracker, and then let's have a collaborative chat about it. to then say, here's the issues we identified, here's the potential solutions, and then obviously a transfer of knowledge on that as well, which then would help them.
So, and so prior to that, it was really down to the actual manufacturing site to come up with their own solutions to the to the audit, if you like.
Yeah, more or less. So because it's a kind of niche industry, and where you've got exposure to operators and other staff members, it's an unknown killer, really, because it's inhalation of substances. It can take 5, 10, 15 years to show results. So if somebody's been exposed to the same amount of substances daily, weekly, it takes many years for maybe COPD or anything like that to kick in. So it's an unknown killer, really, within manufacturing businesses. So I think highlighting that to the clients and the types of people that we deal with is always a good aspect for them to try and understand it better.
And so there must be a legal obligation then, but you've presumably got people say, okay, what's the bare minimum that we can do to kind of comply? And I dare say there'll be others that kind of go well beyond that.
Yeah, we've got loads like that where different really grades and categories of either how hazardous the material is, but then again how exposure is created. So we have a lot of clients where we'll have like a maintenance contract, preventive plan maintenance and thorough examination and tests, where we maybe have other clients with like a small joiner's workshop where it's just a thorough examination and test and saying, look, we'll get back to you type, we'll review all that, then decide ourselves how we're going to take it. But it's usually the larger manufacturing facilities that would have the kind of maintenance contract with it as well.
So go on then, what would it be like? What's the journey of a client then? So let's just say that someone you're not working with at the moment, what happens from that moment of they become a first time purchaser of what you do, and how does that evolve over time?
So typically we would then request any of the information that they have relating to the assets that we're going to be reviewing.
Sorry, let me just jump in there. What was the catalyst to them getting in touch, first of all, and then?
So there could be a few aspects. One could be a HSE inspection. So the health and safety executive do periodic inspections or campaigns, let's say, depending on the application. So most recently it would maybe be metalworking fluids. So if the metalworking fluids is a campaign, HSE would then be going into this manufacturing business, reviewing all the legal requirements, and if it's substandard, that's when they're coming to then reach out to someone like us. To then say, we've had the HSE in, we're substandard, we need to improve on certain aspects. Or it could be from operator morale type thing. So again, if there's a lot of staff members where they could be looking at issues in terms of inhalation, or with metalworking fluids, it could sometimes be a slip hazard. So if there's a lot of fluid on the floor, that could be raised to senior management. Senior management then need to identify and go, we need to go and out to market to see what solutions are out there. Then the third probably is then if there's inspections done by maybe other competitors of ours, but they then don't have the solutions to then resolve, then they maybe reach out and say, we've had somebody in to highlight issues, but then we need kind of solutions on that.
It doesn't really it doesn't smack me as being all that very helpful to go in and just point out what's wrong and then just leave people to find their own solutions. So it sounds like yours is a much better way, I guess.
Definitely. It's a challenge in the industry that we have at the moment, that there is a lot of businesses out there that we say that competence for us is being able to identify the issue and actually provide the solution. Where unfortunately there's a lot of inspections that carry out in our industry where it's just, they do the inspection, there's your problems, I'm away. And it's not really helpful to a lot of clients. And usually when we get our first approach, it's, like I said, is send us all the information you've got. then it's more or less like an initial assessment of, we'll come in, review everything, we'll then send you a report based on that, but then let's attend site, and it's usually based on a PowerPoint where we would then go through photographs tell 1,000 words. Through some photographs, and we talk about the processes and identify there, and hopefully from that initial assessment, they then understand the requirements that they've got to then improve, and then that's the journey that would then start.
And so the journey starts. I mean, how long is the journey forever then? I mean,
more or less forever, because it's a legal requirement. There's, depending on the process, it could either be monthly inspections, 6 monthly, 12 monthly, 14 monthly. So this is a legal requirement, like your vehicle that you have to get done every year. So as long as that manufacturing process stays in business and they continue to manufacture, they've got a legal obligation to ensure that their workforce are protected as well.
So I guess the two questions, which you're kind of almost into already, is what's the key problem that you solve for your customer, and I guess what's your approach to that as well, because every business has got their own angle. So do you want to?
So typically the most problems that we do come across is either poor maintenance of the equipment, or operators not understanding how to use the equipment properly. So we could maybe fail an assessment based on the operator not using the equipment correctly, and they've not been trained properly. So we tend to find that a lot of kit will go in without the operator being trained. But then on the top of that, if they're used 5 days a week within a high production facility, which could be maybe 3 shifts, if they're not maintained properly, then they'll not perform correctly. So it's very common to come in, these statutory inspections go in, highlight a lot of reports, but a lot of it is maintenance usually. And as we've seen over the last maybe 10, 15 years, that manufacturing facilities, their maintenance teams are always shrinking really. So they then look at contractors like ourselves to then support that aspect.
And why are they shrinking?
Probably, I would say over the years, is that younger people, engineering and manufacturing is not a sexy subject, let's say, that a lot of younger people coming out of maybe school these days, or the trades and engineering is not maybe one of their first aspects they're looking at. So the apprentices that come on and that stay on within these types of sectors is low. Then the older generation start to retire, and there's that skill gap between the apprentices and the senior staff. So we tend to find that a business we maybe dealt with 10 years ago could have 10 maintenance team, 5 electrical, 5 mechanical. They've maybe only got 3 and 3, so they're more or less situated on breakdowns. So niche kind of sectors like ours of LEV, the other ones could be compressed air, cranes and things like that. They tend to sub that out to contractors, which then obviously helps our kind of business.
And so then the approach that you take to that, how's that different maybe to what others might do, would you say?
I think it's understanding their knowledge to start with, really looking at where are they on the scale of understanding LEV, local exhaust ventilation, then probably try to plug the gaps in their knowledge and transfer that so that it helps them understand it, so that if they do have some maintenance team or they're subcontracting to us, that then it makes that journey easier for us to then say, we've highlighted this issue, here's the solution and here's the reason. And once we build that trust and confidence there, it's just an easier journey for them. Our typical client may be from a health and safety manager, advisor, a maintenance manager, an operations manager. So these people have a lot of hats to play with. And if they're not, they kind of want LEV saying, oh, we'll give that to EFS. We know it's a cost per annum and it's a headache away from them. Where if they're looking at that and saying, well, if I have to constantly deal with that, they're not getting on with their day-to-day job. So really we want to take away that stress from them, so that they can get on with the job that they're paid to do as well.
And so, and I know obviously with us working together as well, just how kind of personal the approach it is to really get to know the situation and the person as well. And what do you see the benefit of that approach being? Rather, because I think what you said earlier is sometimes people walk in, give the audit and say, there's your problem, see you later. You're kind of filling the gap, which is here's the solution. But it's that, you talk about a partnership approach really to the way you work.
Yeah, so what we tend to do is within our contracts and remit, we have more or less like tracker meetings with that, and within that it could be an hour, 2 hours where we're sitting down for a couple of hours and going through over the items that are there. But within that regular contact, you get to know people, you understand their family life, their friends, and what they socialise and do, and there's always that kind of communication back and forward there. It then just always builds that trust with us as well. So, and we enjoy that. That's one of the aspects that we like going out and doing is getting to know the people that we're dealing with and the scenarios that they're having to deal with day in, day out as well.
And at the end of the day, trust is the most important thing in any relationship, isn't it? But I suppose there has to be, because what you're doing is so important from a health and safety point of view, whomever it is that's contracting you to do the job, they've got to trust
definitely
you as people, but also your competence as well as professionals.
Definitely. Yeah. The biggest aspect on that is because if we don't do our job right and the HSE do come in, and if they're served with an improvement notice or even a prohibition notice, then that can be very costly to their business. Now, the rates that the HSE charge per hour to investigate this, and then the business could be shut down, more or less, if these are not adhered to. So there's a lot of trust put into us to make sure that we do the job correctly and to the level required as well.
And so obviously it's clear that you're clear on the market that you're serving and the approach that you then take, but you can't do all that yourself. So as your business has grown, you've kind of assembled well, we were with the team just the other day actually, but so give us your angle on how you've built the team and what it is that you look for an EFS team member.
So luckily, obviously, the start of this year coming, that we managed to do the values with yourself for the business, and that was extremely helpful throughout the business on many aspects, and recruiting was one of them, where we're looking at understanding our values for the business and making sure that it's the desired behaviours that we want with that. And it's been very helpful when we look at a performance point of view and the values point of view, that we've got a team there that are all singing off the same hymn sheet, really. In terms of the growth of the people and what we were looking to do, we've kind of changed over the years in terms of, as we start to gain contracts and we're recruiting people into the sector, it's very difficult to find experience in our industry. So you tend to be bringing people in from other industries and upskilling them from that point of view. And the technicians that we bring in is usually starting off from a trainee and tend to work their way right up through the business as well. By doing projects more recently over the last few years, we're obviously recruiting project engineers in for doing that as well, so that we've got that level of competency, because there could be quite high value projects as well that we're having to execute and hopefully get right for our clients and make them safe as well.
And it's interesting, you talked about the values piece there as well. I actually use what you did and how your team went about that as an example to others, because and you could say, and again, forgive this doesn't come across the wrong way, but you could say, if you're in a manufacturing type environment, what's all this Ponzi stuff about values about? Why is that important though?
I would say this, if I'm sitting having this conversation 10 years ago, I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying, what's all that really? Now there's no need for it. But as the business is growing and getting the harmony and the understanding across the business, so that when we make business decisions, we can always refer back to it. And it's always us looking at if we have any concerns with clients, looking at, did we respond in the right way? Did we do the best that we could do? Did we take accountability, responsibility there, so that we've got an understanding either in-house or dealing with clients that we're all aligned, and that we want to deal with the right types of clients that are got the same values as us. So over the years, most recently actually, we've removed a few clients because we feel that they don't align with our values there. And it's always that thought process within the team. I've had a couple that have came to me recently, even said they don't fit our values really. We might need to consider moving on to a different type of client.
And it's interesting that you say that, because that's quite a brave thing to do, isn't it? To let go of a client who might be a substantial part of your business for the reasons that you've just given.
Definitely. It was most recently, it was a big part of our turnover, and the decision was made that we would remove them due to the aspects that we were looking at and the communication kind of side that we were hoping that was going to come from both ways, but seemed to only be one way at that point. So ideally, it's been a collaborative approach with businesses is what we're looking to do.
And out of interest, what do you find then when you do that, when you maybe start to strip away the people that aren't in line with your values and your approach? When that happens, there could be that initial fear of, oh God, the business will start. But actually, what have you found actually happens in reality?
In terms of what we do from, let's say, a marketing and sales perspective, the term I tend to use is we've got a lot of channel development partners. So within these manufacturing industries, we would have other disciplines in there. So if we're looking at, we're LEV, there might be, I think I mentioned before about compressed air type thing. So if these other businesses are in, and cause they're all kind of we're all dealing with the same end user, let's say, the maintenance manager, the health and safety manager, and if they're in and are talking, we're having trouble with LEV, and then it's usually because we have these connections with these other businesses locally, there's a lot of recommendation there as well. So we tend to find that leads come in through that kind of opportunity for us. So it was obviously a scary risk removing that type of client, but then there's that confidence there that the other businesses are going to come in, and it's been that growth throughout the business since we established as well.
And it's interesting you touch on marketing and sales then, because so I always kind of, the way I would frame this is, every business should be good at marketing. Right? But if you're not good at marketing, you need to get good at sales. And if you're not good at sales, you need to get good at customer service. Does that make sense? Because and ideally you get good at all of them. But I think what you've been good at doing is you're delivering a really good service that's retaining clients and getting referral. And, right. So that's helping, but also you appear to be getting quite a lot of just inquiries coming through as well, who maybe aren't referral, but just see what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you want to talk a little bit about almost the customer service side of it, and also then the marketing side?
So in terms of the customer service, for us, it's more like these kind of tracker meetings that we've kind of spoken about, is understand things from their aspects as well, because if we don't communicate that way, especially when it's involved with LEV, if we've got aspects where the engineers that are dealing with it have been trying to make the repairs but then been unsuccessful, we kind of want to understand that. Then if we can then assist with them for a training aspect to then be able to help with that, and always communicating with our clients via various modes. If we're on the phone calls, the emails, we use a wee tool, Loom at the moment, which we can probably discuss in terms of a marketing side, where the screen recording aspect of that is fantastic for us to be able to communicate over a screen and identify things and have that video sitting in their inbox for when they're ready is always a great aspect. And Most recently, over the years, with the LinkedIn and more, let's say our kind of industry has always been a challenge where if we identify someone maybe in a quarry or something, they're not technologically savvy, let's say. But as we're seeing the younger generation come on, like maybe a maintenance planner type thing onto LinkedIn, and we start to then post certain aspects of what we're doing, we maybe get a reach out from that, and then using the aspect of Loom there is very handy, because if we get that first round of information that comes over to us, we can quickly dissect it and show them our aspects and how we would maybe deal with it within a short video, which then can give them an insight of, before we have that initial contact, of what we could actually do for them. So it's been a tool that we've used very well recently, which has been very handy for us.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And it's interesting, you know, you said at the start, you know, you and I initially met on LinkedIn and probably through some of my videos, but what I see you doing as well, that Loom, you use that particularly well. And for me, it kind of, one of the values of the businesses, I know, is transparency. And for me, it's that idea of, okay, how can I explain something and be helpful to someone and show them? And for me, that, I think you do that particularly well. And I can see how that works for, okay, well, I'm sort of climbing the ladder of knowledge, from taking someone from zero or low knowledge to a point of, right, okay, I know what I now need to do.
We're very careful about the inquiries that come into the business, and then making sure that once they do come into the business, is understanding from their aspect where they are on the journey from our type of industry. And that kind of aspect where we get the information over and it gives us a real baseline of where they're at, and then having that video go over to then get the feedback to then start that process with them is ideal.
It's interesting, just dialing into what you're saying about information. Have you ever had people who just almost say, here's the problem, go and fix it, and don't almost give you the time to get the information? Because I can imagine that must be a
we've had
challenge.
that a lot of times over the years. And that's one of the more difficult ones, where if you're on to these facilities, is then understanding their process, what they do, how they do it, then how we can then assist with that to support them, is always the challenge for us if we don't get that first round of information over from them.
Do you know, again, I can't help but think, you know, I like my phrases, Stephen, right? But it is that idea of, you know, if you were to give me, what was it? It was Abraham Lincoln that said it. If you gave me 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 6 hours sharpening the axe. And for me, it's a little bit like that with the information. You've got to then spend the time really understanding the current situation before you can then go on and do the...
Definitely. There's a lot of internal admin, let's say, in terms of technically reviewing any aspects that they've got, especially when it's maybe a bespoke process as well that is maybe very niche to them. So we need to try and understand their process, their requirements, if it's either from an exposure point of view, which we've touched on recently, or if it's actually a performance aspect as well, because they don't want plant downtime as well, so they want that plant up, running, making them money. So we need to try and identify, well, if this piece of equipment did break down, that we've got the knowledge and know-how of that application to then get them back up and running very quickly. So us understanding their full aspects is always the biggest challenge for us.
The one thing well, there's a lot of things, I should say, that actually I notice in you which are particularly impressive. One of which is the hunger to learn and grow and to develop. And again, that kind of goes through into the values. You know, I think the first value is continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement,
you know, with the team. So can I just ask about that transition that you've made? So you've obviously gone from employee through to, I guess, initially self-employed and now business owner. How have you found that transition, and how have you continuously improved?
Major challenge. So as an employee, you kind of helped develop a business to start with, which obviously gave me a good insight of a small manufacturing service business. So I kind of had an idea knew that once we started the journey and once we started to gain clients, the challenges that I would face kind of going forward, the balance of time is always an aspect where we use a framework in our business called functionality. So we kind of colour code our business where it's blue kind of makes you money, red costs you money, black develops money. So the blue aspect is your fun stuff where it's sales, marketing, operations, order fulfillment, client services. Red is more your cost you money, which is then your IT, premises, compliance, and all the kind of stuff that costs us but we need to do. And then our black is more our channel development, client service, business development, new product development. So by learning that framework, then staggering the business in different areas and then trying to allocate resource to that, either financially or labour, then that kind of helps kind of navigate the challenges throughout the business as well. So like sometimes priority takes in different areas depending on the order book and the kind of other challenges maybe faced in the business under people maybe. But trying to reflect on that every few weeks is always a baseline for us. I know that most recently we've kind of worked on the critical activities part, so that's then understanding the KPIs behind all these different functions of the business to then obviously make the right decisions week in, week out.
And just on that critical activities piece, how important has that been then for the team?
Oh, huge. It's more like them then understanding if we've got certain numbers, but then understanding the requirement of that. So if we've got more or less like a compliance audit score for us, because we're health and safety, we need to make sure that our audits are up to date. So if basic stuff like van checks and making sure our equipment is all calibrated and things like that. So if we're just keeping tabs on that every month, that always kind of helps.
Yeah, I think that's been a particularly good thing to give the team that clarity and breaking everything down into its constituent parts. But I think to avoid any overlap, because as the team grows, you're going to need to kind of give that definition. Otherwise, you're going to have people over there doing someone else's job that they didn't realise.
Definitely, I think as an employee, I probably didn't understand a lot of the aspects, and then as you have your own business and then try and separate it out in all the different hats you need to wear, and then understanding the skill set of the staff within the business to who can then support these areas and obviously then develop their skills to then hopefully take control of these key functions, because as one person you can't control all the functions within a business.
And so, in terms of where you see EFS going, where is that? And actually, what are the kind of people that you'd be wanting to speak to as the business continues to grow?
So our vision is to become Scotland's premier dust handling partner for the manufacturing industry, and that's more or less us being a Scottish-based company to support all different types of manufacturing businesses, to be able to eliminate any hazardous substances within their factories and obviously keep that personal relationship that we do. So the more businesses we can assist and help with that would be ideal. Usually the headaches that come from these types of equipment that we test and service are typically health and safety advisors, maintenance managers, operations directors, and I would say that any reach out for us is that transfer of knowledge to then help them understand it better as well.
Great. And so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Go on. If I were to ask you and say, okay, give us a list of people that you would love to speak to, kind of companies.
I think
who would be on your list?
Specific
businesses. Go on. Why not?
But I think it'd be more sectors, because it's trying to identify like if you've got cement manufacturing, woodworking, agriculture, chemicals, plastics, pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
So there's a vast range of applications and industries there.
Yeah.
Most recently, we've had an uptake in waste and recycling. So as the world tries to get greener, but there's a lot of incineration now in Scotland, which we also assist with as well. So there's multiple applications that we can help with.
And again, ideally all within Scotland for you?
Yeah, Scotland's mostly with us being based in Bathgate, we tend to always say that we want to be able to reach people within a day type thing.
Yeah.
So ideally it would be mostly Scotland-based businesses that would assist. We do support other businesses south of the border, and it's based on maybe a consultancy type aspect. If they've got a big enough team that we could support remotely, and then maybe a visit every year or something like that, we would obviously consider.
And so, tell me, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to kind of maybe just mention?
With it being a kind of unknown industry, because it's not recognised really anywhere, it's just bringing that awareness of what we do, how we do it, and obviously how to help people as well.
Well, it's Friday after all, and it is Filter Change Friday, so I see that on LinkedIn.
That was on, we would have had it on this morning probably at some point, but well, when you mention a Friday, we've just recently moved to a 4-day week.
That's right, so
So we used to be 8 to 5 on a Friday, and we're a month in of going to a 4-day week.
Yeah.
So kind of condensing the 39 hours that we do into the Monday to Thursday. And we had you out recently for a disc session. And prior to that, I was trying to feedback for the team so far has been good in terms of how that's been rolled out, and the getting to site a bit earlier and helping navigate Scotland's roads, let's say, specifically the M8 a bit earlier is helping us. Then having that little bit extra time in the day for maybe a debrief of the work that we're doing as well, and the guys are loving the extra day at the moment. I think they're wondering what to do with their Sundays now that they've got the extra
3
day.
days. Brilliant.
Days. So hopefully I can get feedback on that to you in the next 6 to 12 months to see hopefully where we are.
So it's going down well with the team, and actually you managed to kind of be even more productive within the 4 days that you're working. From a customer point of view, any reaction, positive or negative?
Well, I was in a meeting yesterday and they were querying how it was going. And again, it was the same feedback of what was said. So in terms of the client base that we've got, there's not been any concern so far. So I'd like to hope that continues.
Yeah, amazing, mate. Amazing. Look, last question I'm going to ask you is, if you were in the pub and you were talking to your mates and you were to say, look, what's the coaching journey been like for you? What would you say?
Fantastic. Been really great. I think for me, having that support of someone of a similar ilk, really, that's been through a journey of a business, and obviously having the Action Coach support network throughout that as well, and the tools and techniques to be able to support it. So let's say that recently we're going through the disc stuff, where you've obviously come out to our facility, we've done the disc assessments, and then having that team understand the different personalities and how we can tailor our conversations towards that. You wouldn't typically get that anywhere else other than an action coach like yourself.
Oh, good. It's good fun as well, eh?
It's good.
A few laughs. Excellent, mate. Well, listen, genuinely, I think, as I say, it was just shy of a year that we met, and you'd clearly built a nice business, even prior to us joining. And I think some of the things that you're doing now are phenomenal. I love kind of watching what you're doing with the team. And there's a real kind of band of brothers type feeling to the team, and that doesn't happen by accident. You have to work at that, and I know that the guys I've got a big respect for you, as I have. So,
great.
Congratulations and well done, mate.
Thank you.